оскільки те, що я хочу казати, буде стосуватися скоріше західної політиці стосовно України, ніж української політиці стосовно Заходу, я перейду на англійську мову. Many things have been said already, and it's difficult now to say something original still. I also think that public administration, economic governance, the implementation of the association agreement, rule of law, and so on are major issues for Ukraine now. But I want to focus here maybe on three, I would say, illusions that in particularly Western Europe and to some degree also Eastern Europe and North America have concerning the most fundamental issue that I think Ukraine is currently facing, namely that of security and state security. They concern the political risk of foreign direct investment in eastern and western, in eastern southern Ukraine, the necessity of a transitory administration, military administration in the currently occupied countries and territories of the Donbas, and the necessity for Ukraine to enter some sort of international security structure. Concerning foreign direct investment, I think much of the association agreement and the whole reform process in Ukraine is about attracting foreign direct investment. I think it is an illusion to think that you can sort of, with public administration reform, better economic governance, better rule of law, compensate for the lack of security and the large political risks that foreign direct investments have in southern and eastern Ukraine, those territories that Russia regards as Novorossiya. I think one has to face this issue, and in the US Congress there's currently a law, as far as I know, that will concern, if it is adopted, particularly Ukraine, and as far as I've noted, there might be a chapter in this new law on Ukraine which will take care of that. But of course the major addressee for such an issue, which has been risen, as you may know, by George Soros in an article in The Guardian in spring 2014, is foreign direct investment, of course, from the European Union in eastern and southern Ukraine. I think one has to solve that somehow, and one cannot simply speak up public administration reform, fight against corruption, economic governance, rule of law, and so on. These things that are all necessary and should be done in Ukraine, they will not solve this issue. The second illusion, I think, that we have, I support the Minsk agreement, obviously, but I think it is an illusion to think that there will be a process in which the Russians are going out and the Ukrainians are coming in. I think that's another big illusion that I see. To count on that, this will simply not happen. There's now the discussion about an OSCE police force there. I'm not sure that that's going to be enough. As I see it, only a heavily armed UN mission or another international mission that is well armed will actually solve this issue. If you really want to solve it, and I think the UN might be a better institution for that than the OSCE, because the weight of the OSCE of Russia and the Russia-allied countries in the OSCE might be too high to make this such an international mission effective. I think one needs to think about it and not to have illusions about the sort of a transition in which Russia simply goes out and Ukraine comes in again. And the third and maybe most complicated issue, and also most fundamental and global issue, is what happens in general with countries like Georgia, Ukraine and Moldova. I've published here an article and also in the Western article, and I've made myself some enemies here by saying that Ukraine should not count on becoming soon a NATO member. I think there are many people here who have this illusion, who think that if only we reform our army well enough, if only we'll have a referendum, then NATO will take us. I know the German public, I assume it's similar in Italy, in France, in in the Netherlands. We just had the referendum there. I don't think there will be, all of these countries have to agree to a NATO membership. I also don't see that the association agreement can be reinterpreted in a way so as to provide security guarantees for Ukraine. So Ukraine has to think about some alternative security structure. If the current situation does not change, if there is no major change in Moscow, major change of leadership in 2-3 years, I think there will be discussions about alternative security structures. You may have seen my article on that, on the reviving an old Polish project of the interwar period called the Intermarium Междуморья, which would be a security alliance of the East European countries and maybe now including Turkey, in which exactly those countries would form a coalition of the willing that are facing the same problems with Russia in terms of information war, trade war, real war, cyber war, Cold War, and so on. I think it is also an illusion just to think that Ukraine will become a success story remaining in a gray zone between Russia and NATO. I think one has to think about it. Just to leave Russia in this, to leave Ukraine in this buffer zone will not be a long-term solution. And I think the same goes for Georgia. Moldova is a slightly different case because Moldova does not aspire to NATO membership, but it may have the same problems. And maybe I'll stop on that. Thanks.